Salam everyone. Very good morning to brothers and sisters in India, and good evening for those who are in the United States. Welcome to today's Rudram chanting and study circle with Mani Uncle. Before we get started with our study circle, do we have any new members today? If you're new, would you mind introducing yourself? Okay, looks like we don't have any new members. Salam Mani Uncle and Sai Swarup, we can get started if you're there.
Sure. Sai Ram.
Sai Ram.
So, loving pranams and humble prostrations under the divine lotus feet of our most beloved Swami Sri Prema Sai, seated in the lotus of every one of our spiritual and divine hearts, of all of the assembled devotees. My special gratitude to the administration and staff of this Sri Satyasai Center of Seattle for giving us this opportunity to conduct this Bhagavad Gita study circle. Are you all able to hear me, Jaggi?
Yes, Uncle, we can hear you.
Yes. Okay,
Yes.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm. Sai Ram.
So let me sing a very short bhajan, inviting Sri Krishna amidst us. Murali Gana Lola Nanda Gopa Bala Ramo Ramo Radha Lola Radha Lola Madhura Murali Gana Lola Nanda Gopa Bala Ramo Ramo Radha Lola Radha Lola Prema Murali Gana Lola Nanda Gopa Bala Ramo Ramo Radha Lola Radha Lola Treta Yugamuna Sita Ramudai Dvapara Yugamuna Radha Loludai Gitanu Trapina Taraka Namudai Gitanu Trapina Taraka Namudai Yuga Yuga Mandana Tagurupadhari Yuga Yuga Mandana Tagurupadhari Murali Gana Lola Nanda Gopa Bala Ramo Ramo Radha Lola Radha Lola Prema Murali Gana Lola Nanda Gopa Bala Ramo Ramo Radha Lola. Thank you. For today's Bhagavad Gita study circle, as I announced yesterday and shared with Jaggi, so we'll start with Sai Swarup with his discourse on Gita Vahini. he would be continuing with chapter 3, where he left with Karpanyadosho, Bhataswa, etc., and onwards. After he concludes, I will start with the TGK uncle verses, chapter 10 and chapter 18. So may I request Sai Swarup to take the stage and make his offering of Gita Vahini, please.
Sai Ram, Sai Ram. Yes, yes. I'll just present my screen.
Sai Ram.
I hope you will be able to see my screen in a minute.
Yes.
Okay. Om Shri Sai Ram. So today we are going to cover the chapter 3, second and third and fourth topics. Third is Arjuna surrenders. The next one is the reason for Arjuna's doubt is his own delusion. So here in this chapter, in this topic, Swami says, what exactly is the cause of all grief? It is attachment to the body that produces grief, as well as its immediate precursors, likes and dislikes. These two are the results of the intellect considering some things and conditions as beneficial and some other things and conditions as not. This is a delusion, this idea of beneficence and maleficence. Since still you get attached to objects that are considered beneficial and you start hating the others. But from the highest point of view, there is neither. The distinction is just meaningless. There is no two at all. So how can there be good and bad? To see two where there is only one, that is ignorance, delusion, maya. The ignorance that plunged Arjuna into grief was of his nature, seeing many when there is only one. So here the Lord says that the cause of all grief is attachment, and then we are seeing the world in duality, that is likes and dislikes, whereas there is no, there are no two different things in the world, whereas everything is just one, but our mind is programmed to see these things as two different things, one that we like and one that we dislike, one that is good for us and one that is bad, but in reality, everything is just one. So that's what the Lord says here. So then he goes on to continue that absence of the knowledge of the identity of Tat, that, and you, Tvam, is the cause of all ignorance. The word Tattva used to mean principle enshrines this great philosophical doctrine. If this truth is not learned, one has to flounder in the ocean of grief. But if it is learned and if one lives in that consciousness, then one can be free from grief. The wound that will not be healed by the external application of balms has to be cured by internal remedies. So Krishna prodded Arjuna with his queries. Why do you weep like a coward? Is it because Bhishma, Drona and the rest are about to be killed? No, you weep because you feel that they are your men. Egotism makes you weep. People weep not for the dead, but because the dead are theirs. Have you not killed until now many who were not yours? You never shed a tear for them. Today you weep since you are under the delusion that those whom you see before you are somehow yours in a special way. So here again the Lord continues to say that you are weeping like a coward and you think that Bhishma, Drona and all your own relatives are going to be killed, but they are not. They are actually not yours. Since you see the distinction between yours and not yours, if you kill someone who is not yours, you are not feeling anything, but when you kill someone who is yours, you are feeling that they are going to be killed by you. But in reality, both of them are not yours in any way. Is what the Lord tries to make Arjuna understand here. And then when you sleep, you are unaffected by this feeling of I and mine. So you are unaware of what happens to your body, the bodies of your people and your possessions, items that you carefully remember while awake. Mine is the possessive case of I. So it comes in its trail. The fundamental ignorance, my dear fool, is the identification of yourself with something that is not you. That is the body. The body is not the Atma, but you believe that it is the Atma. What a topsy-turvy bit of knowledge this is. To cure this ignorance, I must administer the medicine of spiritual wisdom itself. You talk like a wise man. Prajna vadamscha bhashase. You say that this is the dharma while the other is not, as if you really don't know how to as if you really know how to distinguish them, said Krishna. So he says that when you sleep, when you are in a deep sleep state, you are not affected by anything that is which is yours and your possessions or whatever that is. So whatever that happens to what is yours is not affecting you while you are in your sleep. So does that mean that whatever that is yours, is it really yours? So that's what the Lord tries to question Arjuna at this point, and then he tells that you are identifying yourself with something that is not you, but which is the body, but the body is not the super soul or the super soul. So you are trying to understand yourself as the body, but you are actually the soul, is what he says here. And he goes on to say about dharma, where he says you think that something is dharma and something is not, but you really don't know how to distinguish them. So that's what he says here. So then he in chapter 2 verse 11, we already saw that in the previous chapter. Ashochan anvashochas tvam prajna vadamscha bhasase gatasun agatasuncha nanushocanti panditaha, where he says that while you speak words of wisdom, you are mourning for that which is not worthy of grief. You are mourning for something that is not actually to be grieved for. So on one hand, you are speaking about dharma and you speak like a wise man, but on the other hand, you are actually a fool, is what he's saying here. Just a minute, Uncle. So then whatever that is, the wise do not lament for neither the living nor the dead, is what he says here. So this shloka is again reiterated in this chapter. Then we go into Arjuna's objections to fighting, which are actually caused by his own delusion. So here attention has to be paid to one fact. Arjuna is suffering from two types of delusion. One is the ordinary and the second is out of the ordinary. To confuse the body with oneself and pine for the body as if something happened to you is the ordinary delusion. To discard one's own dharma, in this case the duty of a warrior, is as not dharma, is out of ordinary delusion. So Krishna destroyed the first and removed the second. He dealt with the first in the 12 to 30 verses of the second chapter. He tackled the second as a special problem and explained to Arjuna in 8 verses the idea of his own dharma. These are collectively called the 8 verses relating to dharma or the dharmashtakas. So one's own dharma does not bind and produce further birth. It can lead to liberation. It has to be done as a yoga of action or karma without attachment to the fruit. Toward the close of the second chapter, there is also a description of the successful aspirant who has steadied themselves in a purified intellect, the person of steady integral spiritual wisdom, sthita prajna. So here we go into the verses 12 to 30. So here in the 12th verse, the Lord says that never was there a time where I did not exist, nor you, nor all these kings, nor in the future shall any of us cease to be. So he says that basically Arjuna and every one of the warriors in front of them, Bhishma, Drona and the Lord himself, they are all the same super soul, and there is not a time in the past where we did not exist, and there will not be a time in the future where we will not be existing. We'll always be constantly be here only. That is, he talks about the soul. We are always going to be, and you think that since the body dies that we are going to stop existing. And then just as the embodied soul continuously passes from childhood to youth to old age, similarly at the time of death, the soul passes into another body. The wise are not deluded by this. Then in the 14th, he goes to say, the contact between the senses and the sense objects gives rise to fleeting perceptions of happiness and distress. These are non-permanent and come and go like the winter and the summer seasons. O descendant of Bharata, one must learn to tolerate them without being disturbed. So he says that due to the contact between the sense and the sense objects, that is why we are getting these perceptions of happiness and sadness, and these are not permanent, and they are like the winter and summer seasons. That's what basically the Lord says in the 14th verse. Then in the 15th one, he says that, oh Arjuna, the noblest amongst men, that person who is not affected by happiness and distress and remains steady in both becomes eligible for liberation. So he says that the eligibility of liberation is equanimity of the mind, or being unaffected by happiness and distress. So then in the 16th verse, he says that of the transient there is no endurance, and of the eternal there is no cessation. This has been verily observed by the seers of the truth after studying the nature of both. That is, of the transient, that is the body and the material world, there is no endurance. It is not going to stay for a long time. And of the eternal, that is the soul or the super soul, there is no cessation. There is no end to the super soul or the soul. Whatever is temporary will go away soon, and whatever that is permanent will never go. So this has been observed by the people who realize the truth, that is the Panditaha, who have studied the nature of both the permanent and the temporary things. That which pervades the entire body, know it to be indestructible. No one can cause the destruction of the imperishable soul. That is what is said in the 17th verse. He says that the soul pervades the body, it pervades the entire body, and it is indestructible, and no one can cause it to die or to be destroyed. And in the 18th verse, he says that only the material body is perishable, and the embodied soul within is imperishable, immeasurable, and eternal. Therefore, fight, O descendant of Bharat. So here he gives the prompting to Arjuna to start fighting, because the soul is imperishable and it cannot be destroyed, and it is not able to be, it cannot be measured or conceived. So there is no point in trying to understand the death or trying to suffer for the death of the body. So he prompts him to fight. Then in the 19th verse he says that neither of them is in knowledge. The one who thinks the soul can slay and the one who thinks the soul can be slain. For truly the soul neither kills nor can it be killed. So here he says that one soul cannot kill another soul, or it cannot be killed by itself. So the soul is neither born nor does it ever die, nor having once existed does it ever cease to be. The soul is without birth, eternal, immortal, and ageless. It is not destroyed when the body is destroyed. So he says that it is not born and it won't die, and it is not like once it comes into existence and it stops to exist. So it does not have birth, and it is eternal and it's immortal, and it does not have an age, and it cannot be destroyed. Again, he reiterates the whole thing. And as we go on, we see that he talks more and more about the properties of the soul, I mean the characteristics of the soul that we have. So he says that, O Partha, how can one know the soul, one who knows the soul to be imperishable, eternal, unborn, and immutable, kill anyone or cause anyone to kill? So he prompts the question that when you know that the soul is imperishable and it is eternal, how can you think that the soul is capable of killing someone, or it can be killed? How can you think that way? He says that. And then he says, just as a person sheds out worn out garments and wears new ones, we already saw this in chapter 2. Likewise, at the time of death, the soul casts off its worn out body and enters a new one. So it's like removing a shirt and putting on a new shirt. The soul just goes out of the body and takes up a new body. And then he goes on to say that weapons cannot shred the soul, nor can fire burn it, water cannot wet it, nor the wind can dry it. The soul does not have physical characteristics, so it cannot be hurt by weapons, or can be hurt by fire or by water or by wind. The soul is unbreakable and incombustible. It cannot be dampened or dried. It is everlasting in all places, unalterable, immutable, and primordial. So he says, it is a corollary of the 23rd verse. He says that it cannot be broken, or it cannot be burnt. It cannot be dampened or dried. It is everlasting, and it is in all places, all pervading, and it cannot be changed. It is unalterable. It is immutable and primordial. That is, it came in the first, and it is the first and the foremost. The soul is spoken of as invisible, inconceivable, and unchangeable. Knowing this, you should not grieve for the body. So again, he gives a point why Arjuna should not grieve for the body. He says that it is invisible and it is inconceivable and unchangeable. And then he says that if, however, you think that the self is subject to constant birth and death, O mighty armed Arjuna, even then you should not grieve like this. Death is certain for one who has been born, and rebirth is inevitable for one who has died. Therefore, you should not lament over the inevitable. He says that death is anyway going to happen, and rebirth will always be happening for one who died. So you should not be worrying over death and rebirth. And he says, O scion of Bharat, all created beings are unmanifest before birth, manifest in life, and again unmanifest on death. So why grieve? He says that everything was, the body or the material world did not exist before birth, and it is why in life it exists, and again it is not existing. So why are you grieving over such a transient thing? Then in the 29th verse, he says that some see the soul as amazing, some describe it as amazing, and some hear of the soul as amazing, while others, even on hearing, cannot understand it at all. So he says that the soul, again, he reiterates how the soul is inconceivable. Some see the soul as an amazing thing, some hear it as amazing, and some describe it. But others who even on hearing that cannot understand it at all. O Arjuna, the soul that dwells within the body is immortal. Therefore, you should not mourn for anyone. So he says that the soul is immortal, so you should not mourn again. So from 12 to 30, he reiterates multiple times to Arjuna that the soul is a different entity, completely separate from the body, and the soul, you cannot identify with your body, but you are the soul, and the soul is indestructible, it is immutable, it cannot be changed, it cannot be hurt, and you should not be worrying about something that is going to be unchanged, and it going to be continuously existing. And then he even says that if you think that birth and death is constantly happening and you are grieving over that, again that is pointless, because death is again certain and rebirth is again certain. So when you cannot grieve for something that you already know to be certain. That's what he says from 12 to 30. Then we go into how again Arjuna's objections are due to delusion. Arjuna, think for a while who you are and what you are proposing to do. You declare that you know everything, but you weep like a helpless woman. Your words proclaim that you are a pandit, but your acts reveal that you are a simpleton. Your condition is disgusting, to say the least. If I take you to be a pandit, I cannot reconcile with that view with your tears. For pandits do not grieve over life and death. If they grieve, they are not pandits. Pandits have the capability to discover what is fundamentally true. Those who know the secret of the physical and the mystery of the spiritual, only such can be called pandits. How then can they weep or neither the embodied or the disembodied? They will not forego their inner calm, whatever the stress or distress. Here he says that pandits have the capability to know what is fundamentally true and they cannot grieve. So you say that you are a pandit, but you are acting like a foolish person. So please try to understand is what he says here again. And then, do you weep because the bodies of Bhishma and Drona will fall, or because the Atma of those two will be destroyed? For the bodies, do you say, well, are the tears any good? If they are, certainly people would have kept the corpses of their dead and revived them by weeping. No, it cannot be. Immerse the body in the vessels of the divine nectar. It cannot come back to life. Why then weep over the inevitable, the unavoidable? You might say that you are weeping for the Atma, the spiritual core, that reveals greater foolishness. Death cannot even approach the Atma. It is eternal, it is self-evident, and it is pure. It is evident that you have no wisdom of the Atma at all. So here he says the two conditions. You should either be crying for the body or for the Atma. If you are crying for the body, then the body is again impermanent. So if you are crying for that, there is no point. So you can better immerse the body in the divinity rather than weeping over it. Because anyway it is not going to come back to life. But if you are crying for Atma, then you are even more foolish, because death cannot even approach the Atma. Basically he says that Atma is changeless and continuous, whatever we saw in the previous verses. So it shows that you don't have any wisdom of the Atma. So he says, again, for a warrior, fighting is dharmic. Do your duty regardless of other considerations. You ask, how can I cause the death of Bhishma in war? But they have all come to get killed and to kill. You are not killing them in their homes. Of course, it is unrighteous, non-dharmic to kill them in their homes, but on the battlefield, how can it be against dharma? So, I'm sorry that you don't have this much discrimination. It is enough. Get up and get ready for the fray. Why slide to the ground under the weight of all this useless ego? The Lord is the cause of all, not you. There is a higher power that moves everything. Know this and bend your will to it. Bhishma, Drona and the rest have come like true soldiers and warriors to engage in battle. They don't weep like you. Consider, they'll never grieve or withdraw. Arjuna, this is the testing time for you, remember? Let me tell you this also. There was never a time when I was not. Why? There was never a time when even you and all these kings and princes were not. That the Godhead, Tat, is the highest Atma, Paramatma. This, the individual Tvam, is the soul Jivatma. Both were the same, are the same and will be forever. Prior to the pot, in the pot, and after the pot, it was, is, and will be clay. So here he says that there was never a time when we all didn't exist. We all were always there because we are the Jivatma and the Paramatma, which is basically the one and the same. So we were always there. We are now, and we will always be forever. So Arjuna was shocked into awareness and wakefulness by all this. He said, maybe you are God, maybe you are indestructible. I weep not for you, but for such as us. We came yesterday, are present today, and are off tomorrow. What happens to us? Please enlighten me. So here Arjuna is suddenly, after all this discussion, he comes into awareness and he starts asking questions. So here he says that maybe you are God and you are indestructible. He again he is not clear about the concept. So he says that, but we are coming to yesterday and we are staying today and we are going to be off tomorrow. What happens to us is what he is basically asking. One point has to be carefully noted here, that is the Godhead is eternal. Everyone accepts it. But the individual Tvam is also the Godhead. It too is eternal, although it cannot be grasped as easily or as quickly. So Krishna elaborates this and says, Arjuna, you too are as eternal as the Absolute. Seen apart from the limitations, the individual is the universal. Prior to the appearance of the jewel, there was just gold. During the existence of the jewel, there is just gold, and after the name form of the jewel has gone, the gold persists. The Atma persists in the same way, body or no body. So he says that, Arjuna, you think that you are different from the super soul, but you are basically the super soul. So before you came, I was there, and now you are here. You think you are here, but again you are me basically, and after you are gone, you still will be me. So the Atma will also exist in the same way. Is basically what he elaborates here. Although it is associated with the body, the Atma is unaffected by the qualities, gunas and dharmas. It has no qualities and characteristics. You are unaffected by the changes that the body undergoes when you grow from an infant to a boy to youth, a youth to a middle-aged man, and thence to an old man. You persist in spite of all this. It is the same when the body is destroyed, the Atma persists. So the hero will not pine for the so-called change called death. Krishna said this with such emphasis that the whole chariot shook. So he says that the Atma or the soul is not affected by any of the external qualities and the characteristics that we see in the external world, and it is not affected by dharmas. It has no qualities, and it is unaffected by the changes that the body undergoes. So the same way how the individual person exists from the infant to a boy to a youth, and a youth to an old man, the same way the Atma will remain even after multiple births. So the hero will not pine for the challenge called death. So he says that you should not be worrying about the change that is called death. And Krishna is saying this statement with such an emphasis that the whole chariot in which they were standing, it started shaking, it seems. And then I think the chapter ends at this point, Uncle. Jai Sai Ram.
Oh, thank you. Jai Sai Ram. So I'm going to have a tough act to follow this Gita Amritam and Karnamritam, but let me do what I should be doing, my duty. So let me get into the presentation mode and open the tab for the TGK uncles and share it with all of you. So now I am in the presentation mode. So I should go and share it.
No, Mama, don't click on that. You don't need to click on that.
Oh, I see.
No, just click on the present button. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Are we in the presentation mode?
Yes.
Yeah, you can now see the full slide, right?
Yes.
Very good. So let me scroll to the verse that we should be concentrating upon. Yes. This is chapter 10, and the verse 10 is what is chosen by Sai Krishna given to TGK uncle while he was with him during the Bhagavatam, the knowledge of Bhagavan's activities and leelas. So the chapter 10, when I get a chance after finishing these verses of TGK uncle, I'll finish the Purushottama Yogam chapter 15, and after that we'll come to chapter 10. It's another supreme Karnamritam that is delivered by Sri Krishna. So the chapter is titled as Vibhuti Yogam. So you see even Sri Shirdi Sai Baba having the Vibhuti Varsha. So he is totally immersed in his Vibhuti is a Sanskritam word meaning Vishesha Bhuti. That is an extraordinary presence. Bhuti means presence, bhu-bhav, to be. So that auspicious presence is even made it ecstatically highly empowered with the divinity as Vibhuti. So when we sing the Paramam Pavitram Bhava Vibhutim, that is what this Vibhuti is Sri Krishna presence in chapter 10. Now, continuing chapter 10, verse 10, Vibhuti Yoga, yoga through the appreciation of the infinite opulences of God. He literally talks about how he is everywhere, and so that is his infinite opulence. It's not a limited opulence. So now I request Sri Kumar to approach chapter 10 in that gita.org and play this Sanskrit verse.
Okay.
Tesham satatayuktanam bhajatam pritipurvakam tadami buddhiyogam.
सततयुक्तानां भजतां प्रीतिपूर्वकम् ददामि बुद्धियोगं तं येन मामुपयान्ति ते.
Beautiful. Thank you, Sri Kumar. So the Anvayam part of it is, Anvayam means it's a Sanskrit word meaning word by word meaning. I've only taken those words that are of special emphasis. Tesham. Saha means he. I am he. So Tesham is the dative case, plural, to those or to them. Satata Yuktanam. Satatam means always, steady, steadfast, ever. Yuktanam means connected. Yukti, remember when we talked about Yukti, Shakti, Bhakti, Mukti, Vyakti, etc. So Yuktanam is Yukti that is ever connected with me, ever steadfast. Sadhata Yuktanam is steady, not shaky, not doubtful, whether God is there or not there, nothing like that. Firmly established. So that is Sadhata Yuktanam. Bhajatam. Bhaja, 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 japa, 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 bhaja, bhaja, bhaja. What Swami keeps saying, bhajatam is devoted. Bhajans we sing, right? In devotion, utter devotion. So bhajatam, those who are firmly established in devotion unto me, unto my lotus feet. Priti purvakam. Priti is love. So Priti Purvakam, it's a Purnachandra auditorium, we say, no? It means fully, full is Purnam. That's the Purnam here taken. Purvakam, fully filled with Priti, love. Dadami, bestow, that is I give. Buddhi Yogam, remember we talked about Buddhi Yogam in chapter 2, the second half, from verse 47, I believe. And so he talks about Buddhi Yogam. Buddhi is the intellect. Yogam is connection, divine knowledge. So Buddha is the one who is established in the knowledge, right? So buddhi yogam is divine knowledge. Tam, that from which you have come and to which we go back to, which even Sai Swarup was talking about. Yena, by which upayanti come. So here you see the secret, and you see this is the munificence and greatness and grandeur of a radiant intelligence of the brilliance of Sri Krishna is, he just hammers right on the head of the nail. Say, okay, you are shaky in your understanding of the goodness and godliness. So this is what it is, and go step by step on this, walk on these steps, and you will come to me. So upayanti, it's a beautiful Sanskrit word, Upanishads, right? Sitting at the lotus feet of the Lord. Yanti is to your journeying step by step, breath by breath to me. So have no doubt about it. So that is the Vibhuti, right? So translation is, to those whose minds are always united with me in loving devotion, I give the divine knowledge by which they can attain me. So the importance is have the mind, the clarity of the mind in devotion, through devotion. Devotion is the easiest path to the divine love. The end of knowledge is love. So the divine love, one becomes a recipient, and here is the path indicated to the reception of or receiving the prasadam of the union with the Lord. So this is the greatest, the height of this Vibhuti Yogam. Now this slide is a little very strongly populated. There's a lot of black and a little white, but still I'll just go through this because I wrote this in the depths of the glory of Sri Krishna's brilliance of intelligence of Buddhi Yoga. So let us read this. So commentary is Buddhi Yogam. Antakarana are the inner tools that he has given. It's a part of the composition of the Atma doc that Sri Kumar used to display when I was doing chapter 2, you might remember. So what are all the things the Lord has given as a part of the Atma is the Antakarana. Anta means inside, Karana means tools. Antakarana consisting of mind. See, manameva karanam manushyanam bandham moksham yo, as Swami says, no? That mind. And the intellect, when the mind has refined itself, made it finer and finer and finer in thoughts, and it is approaching the soul, which is part of the Atma, as embellished by Sai Swarup. That is the intellect, Buddhi, and Chitta. We talked about Sat, Chit, Ananda, right? Chit is the knowledge part of the Smriti, where the Lord, you see, keeps saying Bangaru, Bangaru, Bangaru. That is where the house of the treasury of knowledge, where the knowledge is being chiseled by the Lord. And so that is the house referred to as the Chitta. And ego is, he also told, Sai Swarup also touched upon the ego because of ahankara, as Shri Sai says, leave the ahankara and hold on to the omkara. And this is why you see right at the top of the corner of the slide, Om is represented. Sahasradala Buddhi, you see hundreds of thousands of petals of the Om. So that knowledge itself is infinite. So he says, Antakarana consisting of mind, intellect, chitta and ego are cleansed. This is one thing you will find in all the operations of the universe. First is the level of cleaning, the purity. then energizing it, because you have done the good work of cleaning and removing all the plurality, and then you are marching towards the unity of with the divinity through the path of through the practice of devotion. So cleansing, energizing, normalizing, and establishment, stabilizing. These are the four unavoidable steps in the process of the journey of devotion in the union with the divine love that Swami calls as unity. Purity, unity, and divinity. Purity is cleansing, purifying, mind, reminding, refining, things like that. So, cleansed through devotion, energized with details of understanding of love, light, and life of divinity. This is conferred by the Lord. So, when you understand that and you are obedient and receptive to His prasadam, then you are a recipient of His divine love, His divine light, Sri Rama, and silent sitting, light meditation, we say, Swami has conducted that. And so you really experience the life, you light, that you are the light. Just as Jesus Christ said, let there be light. So He was light, all the entire being. And life is here is the Trishula of Parameshwara, love, light, and life of divinity. And thus established in oneness with God. Satyam, Shivam, Sundaram, we say, right? So here is that establishment in oneness with God. So this Buddhi Yoga is giving Arjuna is the complete yoga. There is nothing lacking in it. The highest perfectional stage of life. So it can be practiced as he is himself standing lock, stock, and barrel right in front of him. Is not a like a magician performing a trick and all that. It is true. It is Sattvam. So Shakti, Bhakti, Vyakti, Mukti, that is oneness with the Supreme. Mam Upayanti. This is very important to understand this. That is, you reach me and become one with me. So it is you won't say, okay, it's all talk, nothing in practice, no sadhana, nothing. It's all based. Why Swami, you are wasting your energy and all. He says, no, walk on this path and practice all these steps. And there is nothing but me, and you reach me and become one with me, undoubted me. There is Soham Aham Saha. I am he is myself. So you and I have become one. So it is not the force that makes the bulb or the bud of the lotus of a heart blossom. If you have done the silent sitting guided light meditation with Swami, he takes you step by step, and with a light from the command center, Ajna Chakram, he opens the bud of the lotus of the heart of the devotee and blossom it. And you see even the very subtle whisper of the kissing love of the divine love blossoming petal by petal by petal by petal. It is such a beautiful experience, inner experience. So the idea here, he says, no force, go to the source. As Dr. Sanjay used to, Mahalingam used to say, no force, go to the source. So the source is the blossoming of the heart. That is by the pure light of knowledge that comes from the Ajna Chakra. Presence of the mind, or this omnipresence, presence of the mind, being abundantly resourceful within and with and from the source. So this what I shared very recently, that is, go to the source. Such a devout readiness You see, the emphasis on readiness. I am ready. So then Bhagavan is ready to say, okay, you have taken the first step, I'll take the 99 steps and give you the summum bonus of 100 yards of dash. So, presence of the mind being abundantly resourceful in and with and from the source, such a devout readiness, alertness, and sharp awareness qualifies the mind. It has become almost the mastermind. It has mastered all the problems of life and walked through gracefully and courageously to the goal of oneness with the Lord. And you are ready for the award of the oneness. Here is where I want to just share a few self-experiences when I was in Prashanti Nilayam. See, I had gone for a course for teaching all the Bal Vikas children. And so I had visited the Thailand where the doctor, his name is slightly forgetful. And so I visited his school. He taught me and gave me even the certificate. And when he came to Prashanti Nilayam, Swami was handing out the gold medals and the certificates. So as he gave me the certificate, he told me that, weakness is in the mind and that can be replaced only by strength. And that strength is truth. Truth is the strength. And I am the truth. That is why I am called Satya Sai Baba. So that oneness gives us also the dharmam, union with Satya, Dharma, Shanti, Prema. So oneness with the truth is the strength we really have. The rest is all, eating and other things is all just for the body to support itself and maintain itself. And who really makes it as a prasadam is Sri Krishna, the Lord. So, continuing, Sri Krishna had made Arjuna knowledgeable of this deservedness in the second half of the second chapter of Sankhya Yoga itself. So, the first half is Sankhya Yogam. He clearly says, I am the Atma, undoubtedly. Atmanyev Atmana Tushtaha, Sita Prajnaha Tatospriya. How to establish yourself in the knowledge of the Atma, constitution and composition of the Atma. He dwells eloquently in the first half. In the second half, he talks about the Buddhi Yogam, which is what we refer to. So, for God and his divine realm remain entirely beyond the scope of the corporeal and the material energy. See, man cannot claim that he is God unless he has the conferral of the grace of God, of the fulfillment of the 99 steps that God alone can grace with. First step, of course, man has to take and be undoubtedly saying, yes, through the path of devotion, I will reach God using Buddhi Yogam, which is what he says. And Kena Upanishad is another Upanishad, Kena Upanishad. By whom is this Upanishad? By squatting at the feet of the Loka Guru. Only those who think that he is beyond the scope of their comprehension truly understand him. Just by doing all the intellectual gymnastics, now the whole world is rejoicing itself in the Olympics. We have the gymnasts and they tell all how they missed this and missed that and so on and so forth. It's pretty much of all the muscular gymnastics or intellectual gymnastics. Here the Lord says, with all that you cannot reach me. You have to have my grace before you can become one with me. And to earn the grace, E or N, you have to earn for me through the path of devotion. I want to become one with you, Krishna, 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 Krishna. So how Radha was pining after him. And Krishna became so disturbed by her condition. He said, okay, Radha, wherever you are, I am with you. Okay? Don't doubt that. And so don't pine after me hereafter. I see you pining, I also start pining. I don't want to do that. So I will make sure wherever you are, I am with you. Finished. Radha Krishna, inseparable. So Here he says, you don't do all these intellectual gymnastics to thinking, oh, finally I'll reach the Lord. So he says, be careful about that. Sri Krishna, understanding this plight and even the pining of the cow girl, Radha, reveals here how knowledge of God can be gained. That's what is the supreme gain, the hyperbolic gain. He says that it is God who bestows the divine knowledge upon the soul. See, without his touch, Swami always shows, is Bhava Bhaya Harana. With this thing, he removes all the fear and establishes firmly the faith in devotion and march on to the love of the Lord, and you become take the ownership of your own kingdom of divinity. That's a true knowledge of God is not a result of intellectual gymnastics, but a consequence of his grace. See, that grace has to be earned. So this is one thing that I would urge you to internalize. Jnana moolam gurur murtihi. The root of jnana is Guru's murti. He is, what is it? Trinetra murti, Trimurti, and puja moolam gurur padam. We do the worship. You worship the Guru Pada attached to his lotus feet. So puja moolam, through that through the worship of his lotus feet, you reach the tree, and you are rewarded with the tree of puja, of the worship. Mantra moolam gurur vakyam. So you keep chanting Om Shri Sai Ram or Shri Sai Ram, Sai Ram, Sai Ram, Sai Ram, Sai Ram. Mantram. Manam trayate iti mantram. That root, the namasmarana, will take you to the Guru's vakyam. That is, you will invoke his grace to such an extent, he will come and talk through your tongue. That is why Brahma keeps Saraswati in his tongue. So, moksha mulam, why do all these three steps? Jnana, getting jnana, and then do the devotion to his lotus feet, and then namasmarana, etc. Finally, you are free from the whole worldliness by his kripa. So, please remember that and recapitulate. Swami says, after darshan, you go to a quiet spot and start thinking over and drawing upon all the nectarine sweetness that you got out of the darshan. The same way, out of all this participation in this Gita Yajnam, as I call, of the nectarine words and discourse from Sai Swarup, and a little bit from what I have shared with you, Vibhuti Yogam, the Lord also mentions in this verse that he does not choose the recipient of his grace in a whimsical manner. It's not off the top of his head. It is coming right from the lotus feet of his heart, where the devotee is seated. He keeps saying, Name bhaktaha pranashyati. I won't let my true devotee to suffer and get destroyed. So instead, he bestows it upon those who unite their antakarana, the inner tools that I have given them. Just as we use the screwdriver to screw and tighten up the screw and get the two parts that the screw is connecting, in a very similar manner, through the antakarana, he connects the devotee and shows the devotee how to use the inner screwdriver to reach him and his lotus feet and be in union with him in the heart. Let me turn the light on because it is getting darker in my place. So, as Jesus said, let there be light. So we can see a little better. So now let me go to the final. So it's already 8:30. Let me rush through. But it is another beautiful beautiful verse. Look at the picture. This is what zillions of words. The kind of confidence that he has, and how the sun, this is the material sun, the Atmic sun that is shining in his heart is the cause of that material sun to shine through, right? Pujasva vivasvantam bhaskaram. You remember Arjuna in chapter 4, he says, I gave the secret to Vivasvan. So I'll talk about this, the whole design of the Atmic sun one day when I get the chance. So now I request Sri Kumar to play that chapter 18, verse 78. That is the last shloka recited by Sandhya.
Yatra Krishna Yatra Partho Dhanurdhara Tatra Shri Vijayo Bhutir Dhruvanitir Matir Mama.
See, each word is, soaked in supreme confidence, without any ray of doubt. So, Anvayam, word by word, Yatra, wherever, Yogeshwaraha, the one who gives the yoga, that is union, Shri Krishna, Dhanurdharaha, the supreme archer, Savisachi Arjuna. Savisachi, he earned his name because he used to shoot arrows from both his shoulders, left and right. So the enemy has no chance of continuing with all his vagabondism. So Savisachi, I lost the thread. Tata Shri, yeah. So Shri, the italicized word is Shri, is the opulence. Yeah, Vibhuti said is opulence. So he says, you are going to be the recipient of all my opulence just by doing this purity, unity, and divinity practice, as we saw in the previous verse. Tesham Satati Yuktanam. This is another brilliant verse. So, those are the 9 verses I would probably, in all humility, recommend that one should really keep rotating them in their tongues. So, Bhagavad Gita is at least through these 9 verses, the entire 700 verses will be at least given a chance to have their life. I keep saying 9 verses, but so far I have received only 8. So waiting for the 9th, but no hurry. I'm ready to be peaceful infinitely to read the 9th golden verse. So Vijayaha, victory, Bhutihi, prosperity, Dhruva, unending. So no doubt, no ray of doubt. Dhruva is Dhruva Charitram, Nitihi, righteousness, and Matihi Mama, my opinion. So you see the beautifully of the strong strength of Atma. He never forces anything on Arjuna. For Arjuna, this is all what is me. I am not forcing this upon you because it is shining in my heart. It's totally up to you. It's only my opinion I'm sharing with you. So finally, Arjuna turns around and says, oh, Krishna, you are my best friend. And I see your munificence and mercy, your grandeur and glory. Definitely, I'm going to walk in your light. Excuse me. So the translation is, wherever there is Sri Krishna and Sai Krishna, the Lord of all yoga, and wherever there is Arjuna, the Savisachi, the supreme archer. So we have to use our mind. And yatho dharmaha tatho jaya. That has to be ringing in the mind. And this knowledge of Sanatana Dharma, the eternal truth that Sai Swarup shared with us, there will also certainly be unending opulence. My devotee will not be a beggar and slaving around and crying in what you call as self-pity and all this negative values. He'll be rich in all my divine virtues. So that's what he says, my unending opulence and victory, prosperity, that is Sri Lakshmi. Narayana, Jaya Lakshmi is right at his lotus feet. And righteousness, that is Dharma. Of this, I am super confident. So let us see, we will quickly march through the commentary. So chapter 18, verse 78 continued, she says, is the commentary. Sri Krishna's divine qualities such as mastery in renunciation, right? He talks about Tyagam. That is what Moksha Sannyasa Yogam chapter 18 is about. Moksha Sannyasam, that is renunciation. Renunciation of what? Of the fruits of my action. Who is performing? The Lord is speaking through the tongue with the Saraswati, embellishing with all that is divine Amritam, right? So that makes sense. Without His grace, these words would lose their prana, the life. See, even just a word is enough to wake up dying souls from their deathbed. As Mother, what is her name? That European lady, she used to visit in Calcutta, and all those even divine, the corpses, they say, oh, Mother Teresa. So when Mother Teresa comes, she'll sit up, and some will stand and dance, saying, Mother, that is the power of the eternal presence of God, the Father, the spiritual Father who inspired Jesus Christ to be enlightened yogi in spirituality, inspired the presence of this thing, opulence, yogic discipline, are sources of eternal inspiration. See, this is the spirit, the undying spirit. So will be, that is why inspired by the spirit, the in spirit. The indweller, the spirit, that is the infinite spirit, is dwelling in the heart. So that is the crux of this word, inspiration, to Pandavas and his devotees. So these are the sources of eternal inspiration to Pandavas and his devotees. Commentary quickly reading. Shvetasvatara Upanishad, none equal to and none greater than him. So, equipoise is good as reaped by the presence of the Lord in the lotus of the heart. That is the message. God is the independent, self-sustaining sovereign of the universe. And the only worthy subject is not an object. God is not an object. Object changes, whereas subject is immortal. So, worthy subject of adoration and worship, puja phalam, puja moolam. We do the Guru Pada Puja. Why do they do that? So, to get the enlightenment. The soul that surrenders to him provides a platform or a vehicle for his incomparable glory to shine forth. Thus, wherever the Supreme Lord and his pure devotee are, they are in union. You see in the chariot, the light of the absolute truth will always vanquish the darkness of falsehood. There can be no other outcome because of the union. It is a mysterious, powerful union and perfect union. Swami is in his words, Mama Dharma. That is the wraparound of the 700 verses or 700 plus verses. Dharmasya marmam premam. The marmam is secret. So secret means it is hidden. So that is why Guru Guha Ananda. So Lord Subramanya is Guha, is hidden, hiding in the heart. He said that is safest place I can hide. Nobody can reach me. Or people will forget what they have in their heart and keep on searching outside. I am right inside your heart. That is a marmam, that is the secret. Abundance of munificence, mercy, and love is the conspiracy of the universe. This is what Buddha realized, that there is no point in running after beating the body to death, but recognize the presence of compassion and love in one's own heart, which is the conspiracy of the universe. So the universe conspires to love and explode in love. That's what transformed Buddha from Hinayana to Mahayana. Mahayana means the universe, comprehending the universe and residing in the blossoming of the divine love in one's own heart through the practice of compassion and munificence and abundance. This is the grace of God. The living entity in its original position is pure spirit, inspirations of Jesus Christ. I won't get into the Bible, but I'll walk through some of the pearls and jewels of the Bible. 10 Commandments. Moses, the presence of Moses, and how he transformed Moses in the wilderness, the 40 days of his japam, tapam, etc. And this is the crux of the whole scenario. Photolithographic manifestations or demonstrated proof and evidence of Agni. See, in the desert of Sinai, Jesus Christ wrote the 10 Commandments on a stone with his fingers, and the Agni was shooting from the fingers with the light so that it could bear the light so that there is no darkness. And there was the Agni to chisel the words into the rock and write the 10 Commandments. That is how the 10 Commandments were born out of the heart of the Lord. So please do read these things. Photolithography. Photo means light. Litha means stone. Graphy means write. How to write on the stone with the light. This is what I used to design these machines, photolithographic machines, to be able to write on the silicon wafer. It's made from rock, polished and other things. That's how I worked as a semiconductor scientist. So photolithography with the grace of God. So we were able to move mountains and come to the yogi. So photolithographic manifestations are demonstrated proof and evidence of Agni, that is the thermodynamics. The union of thermodynamics with photolithography, that's another huge mystery. And luminous optics, which is light, flexible creativity. See, this flexible creativity is the threshold to immortality, fortified by Sri Rudram that we chant. That's how our hearts get transformed, but from being a stony heart to be a lotus flowery heart for the residence of the Supreme Lord in it. So, Triambakam Vijamahe, this is a mortal chanting. So, conquer death. So, Swami says, learn to live in life, how to die so that you are not born again. I'm just reformulating the words of Sai Swarup into the words of Swami, our Sai Krishna. Learn to live life. That is, you are born, so you live the life. conduct the life with the prana of the Lord, so that you learn to die chanting the Om and His. That is why you see the presence of Om embellished so nicely at the top right hand screen of this slide. So, Om, that's why he has got the chant of 21 Oms, because there are 7 chakras in the body and the 3 Oms of cleansing, energizing, normalizing, and stabilizing in the Om itself. Finally, at the Brahmarandram of the Sahasra Rambujaruda, the lotus opens with its thousands of petals, and the Lord shines with Trembakam Vijamahi, etc. So the living entity is situated between the energies of material Maya. See, the material Maya is the object world of the world, and transcendental spirit. Without the spirit, all these objects that we have in the world, we won't be able to even enjoy them, because His presence comes to deliver all these objects as His prasadam. Prasade sarvadukhanam hanirasyopajayate prasanna chetaso yasho pulihi paryavadishtate. In Buddhi Yogam, chapter 2, 70 some shloka is this. Anyway, now I open it up to our devotees who must be hungering to voice their whatever. Let us listen to the thunderbolts and lightnings, as they say. Jai Sai Ram, please, it's all yours. Offering unto His lotus feet. Please go ahead. It's I know I have taken some extra time in ending the TK, the 8 verses from TK Uncle. So choice is the best. So if you have time, at least memorize them and keep on rotating them in the heart, in the tongue and the heart, drawing upon the nectarine sweetness of His lotus feet. Couldn't say it any better. You can also ask questions on the presentations of Sai Swarup, because we didn't have time to do question and answer for Gita Vahini discourses. Anyway, those of you who would like to present verses are most welcome. Take the template, follow the template, and prepare your Google slides. These are all Google slides that Sai Swarup educated me on, and I've taken the help of Sri Kumar as well. So they come out reasonably very simple. So I urge you to come and bravely share your wealth of love, light, and life with the rest of us. You can forward those slides to me at the Bhagavad Gita study group WhatsApp chat box, or one-on-one, whichever you feel like doing. Last time I remember one gentleman asked about the Karpunya Dosham. That's a wonderful question. You see, it stimulated my brains to admit that I have forgotten that I started this universe with every one of you, and we were a bundle of love and strong joy and bliss with which we started this universe. And we had to, so to say, separate oneself from ourselves, as Swami says, from love to love. That's the beauty of love. It's the mystery of love. In spite of the seemingly sense of separation, it has not separated at all. And yet, it has become two in one. Like this, there's become the 8 billion or 7+ billion people, all each one of them having the same Atma. And yet, Atma is just the same which started the universe. What a revelation this is. When I realize this, the potential is so infinite. So each one of is divine and each one of us is God. Only thing is that we should not let the ego boss us. So keep the ego under check. That's the whole idea of this dance. See? Dhim, dhim, dhimi, dhimi, natana Shiva. That's what he is doing. It's Krishna's lotus feet. See, with the anklets ready to dance. Dance for what? Just to quell the ego. You are nothing. You don't know anything. Ahankar. So it's what Shri Sai Baba says. Ahankar ko chhod do. Omkar ko pakad lo. So everywhere, wherever he is worship, he is blessing his right hand, the Omkaram is constantly wheeling right in the center of his palm. Balanced Omkaram. Please do come with your thoughts, opinions, comments, criticisms. I'll just wait for another 3 or 4 more minutes at the most, because we are reaching almost 9 o'clock. I've gone beyond my allotted time of 8:30 into 9 o'clock because I wanted to finish this TGK verses, which has taken the extra 5-10 minutes. Forgive me for my indulgence. See, if there are no questions or clarifications, I would humbly request that we close this meeting within the next 1 or 2 minutes. Shall we, Sri Kumar?
Yes, Mama. It's almost 9 o'clock.
Okay, thank you. I'm really making you all wait, especially the administration staff who have been kind enough to extend this forum to us. Anyway, I'm going to close with the permission from Sri Kumar on behalf of the administration to chant Om with 3 Shantis and end this meeting. Shanti, Shanti, Shanti. Sarve janaah sukhino bhavantu. Samastalokaah sukhino bhavantu. Om Shanti, Shanti.